Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast. It's Stephanie Ricca with CoStar News here with STR's Isaac Collazo and CoStar's Jan Freitag. We are 21, 41, I forget what floor we're on. Floors, either way, a lot of floors above Times Square in New York City. Hi, guys.
Hey, Steph.
Today, we are here to talk about the new CoStar Tourism Economics Forecast released on June 2nd here at the NYU IHIF conference. You know, it's been almost a full day of this conference. There's optimism, there's pessimism, there's a new forecast. It's a mixed bag. We are going to talk about all of it. Before we get in there, I would love for you guys to each share one quick highlight of the conference so far. Jan?
So I thought what was really interesting was a gentleman from KSL who talked about buying irreplaceable assets. And when I hear that term, normally we just talk about resort hotels. But he was talking, no. Downtown properties these days are so expensive to build, they're kind of irreplaceable. So they're leaning into that. I just never thought about it that way.
And for me, it really was Matthew Luzetti from the Deutsche Bank and his view of the economy. And it was such a balance versus what we're hearing in the media, that everything's going to heck and, we're not going to survive. The life, it's going to end the way we know it. This guy just presented everything that I've been thinking about. And so it gave me confidence in the forecast that we're going to be talking about, because, again, that's what we're thinking about at STR.
And there will be life after NYU.
There will be life after NYU.
And that's a great transition into conversation about the forecast. Now, of course, we are going to drop that forecast information for you in the show notes and in the story so you can see it, and we don't have to spend a lot of time describing lines on slides. But set the scene for us very quickly, Isaac. Give us the basic overview of what this new forecast is and how it's changed from the last one.
Well, it shouldn't be a surprise that we're lowered the forecast, and we're lowering it by 80 basis points. So we're going from a 1.8 RevPAR growth in 2025 to 1% RevPAR growth. Most of the decline is on the demand side, where we lowered demand by 60 basis points. And then ADR, we left it pretty flat. It's still come down about 30 basis points, but not dramatically. So I think the biggest thing is we've seen a slippage and some slowdown in the demand piece. We've been hitting actually our previous forecast ADR, but we knew the demand is a little softer, obviously because of the increased uncertainty in the economy and then other factors that have been pushing down that demand. But overall, we think it's a very solid forecast. We think it's still pretty optimistic in some cases, and I think it really reflects the environment we're in better than if it had gone to zero or something. So I think it makes sense to me.
So what is the ADR percent change you said that we're proposing this year?
I think it's a 1.3%. I think we were at 1.6. I'm checking that as we speak.
So, yeah, my point is just to say, wow, that number is still pretty low and still well below the level of inflation. Pick, an inflation number, 2.3, 2.5, 2%, whatever it is. But we're proposing that number is, that the ADR growth is still below that.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with ADR, and we've talked about this before, even at 1.6, which was our previous forecast, that was still below the rate of inflation. So even though we're dropping to 1.3, that seems even worse, right? Because that's even further away from inflation. So we do expect inflation to increase over in the year. But again, either way, 1.6, 1.3, still below the rate of inflation. It really means, there is some underlying pricing difficulties out there. And so I think that's going to continue.
But there's still demand, right? There's still demand for hotels. This is happening. This is a forecast. Let's do what you both do best and pick it apart a little bit. So forecasts, as we all know, can go one way or the other, right? We can beat the forecast. We can fall below the forecast. I mean, honestly, whoever gets it right on the nose. So let's unpack a few scenarios of positive versus negative. So Jan, I want to hear from you first on this one. What could change this year to make this forecast, to make the actualized performance be better than what we're forecasting right now?
Better or worse?
Do you want to go worst? Let's go worst first. Okay, let's end on the good note and tell me what could make it fall apart.
Yeah, so in meteorology, right, we talk about the cone of uncertainty, whether whether hurricane or the tornado goes. So we certainly also have a cone of uncertainty with our forecast. It could come in a little bit higher. It could come in, sorry, the actual number could come in a little bit higher or lower. So let's talk about what could be on the downside. What could be the risk to make our forecast too aggressive and what would make the actual performance not come in. So the three pieces, supply, demand, and revenue, what could happen? Well, supply could pick up if we see labor costs and construction costs coming down. We could see the interest rates finally being cut and people then jumping in and building more hotels. On the demand side, demand could be lower, right? You heard the term, the U word. We don't like to use the word uncertainty, but people talk about it at the conference a lot. There's just a lot of unknowns here. So maybe that will hit domestic demand because people sitting on their hands. We use this term, uncertainty breeds inaction. The American leisure consumer may not travel as much. International inbound could be much weaker than expected. And corporate transient demand could be much weaker than expected. And then lastly, on the pricing side, if we don't have the demand side, is it possible that our room rate growth projected of 1.3% is actually too aggressive? So those are all the things that could go possibly wrong.
Well, I think I'm going to pick up on a couple of things you said, Jan. First, on the ADR side, if we are seeing shorter booking windows, what I'm afraid of is that hoteliers will get scared and therefore start discounting. So that could actually lower the ADR growth that we have. And again, it's not a lot of ADR growth because we're talking 1.3%. So anything that fear could breed a practice that would be detrimental to the forecast and to the hotels themselves. But on the demand side, what I've been thinking about and what I've been watching, again, is all the labor stats. I'm watching weekly unemployment claims. I'm watching the actual layoff data on a monthly basis. So for me, demand will be impacted the most when our populace starts losing their jobs. And when it gets down to the professional area where you have big corporations laying off lots of middle managers, all kinds of that type of individual, those people that travel, that have the income, and all of a sudden they don't have the income anymore, then I think that's when you really could see a change in the demand profile. Because right now, and it was shown on stage today, the employment picture looks good. And there is really no signs of real fractures in the employment picture, and the layoffs are well below long-term trends. So I think that's the piece to watch because it's the demand that we have to really watch carefully, but that's going to be tied to the economy.
One interesting stat that stood out to me from the gentleman from Deutsche Bank was the delinquency rates, the default rates from the student loan data, which has skyrocketed up. I mean, skyrocket is a relative term, but there are just a lot more of them with the loan forgiveness program stopping. So, of course, if those former students who still have the student loans have to pay back those student loans, that is less money in their pocket for a potential leisure trip.
Correct.
On the flip side, so again, demand is that cornerstone, right? Makes or breaks what's going on in hotels and the performance. What, Isaac, could surprise us in a good way as we watch performance play out for the remainder of the year?
I think we've seen it already in the Memorial Day results. I think people shrug it off. As long as I'm employed, I don't really care about the uncertainty that is being spoken about and on the press. Because I'm going to go on vacation. I want to see my family. I want to see my friends. I want to have new experiences. So as long as I have the economic backing and that security, forget what's in the press, just the security of my job is fine. I think that's what's going to be the upside. I think we saw it again for the Memorial Day weekend. We saw that we actually sold more rooms this Memorial Day weekend than a year ago, and it was the third highest in history. So all that uncertainty, it didn't breed inaction from people wanting to get out there and to live life.
That's a good real world and recent example. Jan, where's the upside for you?
I mean, there's plenty of upside that could potentially happen, right? You could argue, this is sort of a funny, not funny, but like sort of an interesting way to look at the data. But if things are uncertain, Americans may just stay home and not go far afield to Venice or to Tokyo. And they may just go back to the Great Smoky Mountains or the Colorado Rockies or back to San Diego. So we may see with this uncertainty more Americans driving domestic leisure demand. We are here at the NYU Hotel Investment Conference. it seems very active. So we're still very bullish on group demand, and tariffs, no tariffs, who knows how that's going to play out. I think one thing we learned after COVID is that we have to be together in person, and we continue to be very constructive on group demand going forward. And I think the publicly traded companies in their earnings calls said as much. I think there is certainly potential for people who have booked their trip to the United States from other countries 6 months ago, maybe even over 8 months ago or a year ago or so, because they said, oh, I always wanted to see the Statue of Liberty, I always wanted to see Las Vegas. Those trips are on the books, and they may still happen. We could still potentially see an uptick in international inbound. So I think overall there's still some sort of green shoots that we could make up or forecast that would make our forecast maybe a little bit too somber.
You know what? Let's end on a positive note. I feel like at these conferences, we're always trying to paint the overall mood or feeling with a very broad brush. Optimism, pessimism, nowhere in between. Hey, things are chugging along. There is demand. We're staying in hotels. So that's a great note to end on. As always, thank you both for your insights, and thank you to our listeners. So Tell Me More just dropped our most recent regular episode last week. Give that a listen if you have not already. The hotels reporting team at CoStar News is covering everything here at the conference. Find news, video, interviews, and more at costar.com/hotel news. See you next time, guys.
Thanks,
See ya.
Steph.
Hi, I'm Davon Reed.
I'm Omari Head.
And I'm Chris Henry.
We're the hosts of the Next Gen and Lodging podcast. It's a monthly show in which we interview a new generation of hoteliers to get their insights into a variety of disciplines and topics, from finance to food and beverage and hotel operations. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This bonus episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast, was recorded on June 2nd, 2025 by me, Stephanie Ricca. It was edited by Rachel Daub. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and find all the global hotel industry news you need, including podcasts and video interviews, at costar.com/hotel news. Thanks for listening.